Well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the intersection of finance and identity, routing your way to project approval. My name's David Lundell. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Identity Managed. I'm the author of a book on the Microsoft Identity Stack, and I've also been a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional for 10 years. I also have a master's in business from the Eller College of Business at the University of Arizona. So how do we get approval for our identity management projects? That is the burning question today. We all know the benefits of standard employee identity management. We lower IT and compliance costs. We make users more productive by automating and responding more quickly. And finally, we improve security. Similarly, consumer identity management can help us lower IT and privacy costs, or the privacy compliance costs, but it can have even bigger payoffs. By lowering the barriers to doing business, we can convert more web visitors to customers by providing easy registration and social login. Because of customer analytics, we can better market to segments of customers and get more and bigger transactions. What are the obstacles to selling identity management, whether it's enterprise or consumer identity management? Limited budgets and manpower, inflexible IT architecture, limited time with executive leadership. It can also be hard for people to see the connection to the big picture and the impact on the bottom line. Plus, techies can tend to get very wordy and make boring slides full of text that they then read directly from the screen. There are 3 keys to routing your way to project approval. First, you need to align with the CEO's goals. Second, you need to illustrate the potential financial impact of the programs you're pitching. Third, be concise and impactful in your presentation. So how do you do that? Let's first talk about aligning your goals. You need to discover your organization's strategic goals and create identity management goals to support those. This is best done by seeing how identity management supports the organization's goals. Not the IT department's goals, but the organization's goals, because that's what the CEO cares about. And that's what you can get the business driving behind. Do this and you'll have made it that much easier to sell these programs and projects up the chain. This does require some thought. So you need to start by researching the organization's goals. Read the annual report. How many of you are not consultants? How many of you have read your company's annual report in the last year? A few of you. Excellent, very good. How many of you have never read your company's annual report? Okay, some of you. Now, those consultants, how many of you have read the annual report before you go and visit a client? Just one. Okay. Oh, 2. Oftentimes, the major goals for an organization are stated right there in the annual report. This is a great place to go to get information. Also, look for information about mergers and acquisitions activity. Before I went and visited a medical device company, I read their annual report and did some other research. And when I walked into the meeting, I said to them, I bet you guys are opening up new lines of business, and those lines of business are pulling out the corporate credit card and signing up for cloud services before you guys even get the memo that there's a new line of business. And they said, yes, that's spot on. And then I said, you know, it's going to get a little bit worse because next quarter you guys are opening yet another line of business. To which they responded, wait, how did you know that? I read your annual report. Needless to say, they were impressed with how I was trying to help their company. You also should look at the press releases. This can give you more up-to-date information about what the company is saying about itself. Look at social media to find out what others are saying about the company. Want ads. This is a hidden gem. What can you find about a company from their help wanted ads? You can find out what systems they have. You can tell whether they're running Active Directory or whether they're using a different LDAP. You can tell what kind of databases they use. You can tell what kind of programming languages they use. Sometimes you can tell what kind of identity management system they may have already implemented or what they may be considering. Companies give away a lot of information in the want ads. Next, you want to extract the top 4 to 6 goals from what you found from their stated goals, but also from the trends that are happening. Sometimes they don't have a stated goal. Hey, we want to successfully integrate the companies that we've just acquired, but that's an implicit goal. You also want to look for partnerships. How are they trying to grow? Are they launching new lines of business? Are they under pressure to reduce costs? A great way to sense that is to look at their trailing 12 months of the stock price if they're a publicly traded company. And that'll give you a quick sense of whether they're feeling desperate for something that will save them money right away, or whether they're feeling more comfortable and are willing to invest in something longer term.
Question.
Go ahead, Harv.
What about trends?
What about trends?
How do you discern the trends?
So you can discern, so how can you discern the trends? You can discern the trends by looking, do they have a history of merger and acquisition? Does it look like it's speeding up? Are they doing it more frequently? You can look at the financial statements. There's a website that's been available for years now called Edgar Scan, where you can download companies' financial statements, their 10Ks, in a CSV or Excel format, and you can very quickly do some graphs, sparkline type things, and see are their numbers going up or down. Excellent question. Thank you, Harv. So then you want to list out how identity management projects can help with these top goals for the organization. Then you're going to present it to the leadership and you're going to learn more. Sometimes you'll hit the nail on the head. Other times it'll be an opportunity to have more discussion about what's important. But either way, you're getting a seat at the table and becoming more strategic. By doing this kind of research, I identified 6 major goals for a produce company. They had goals such as continuing to leverage their strong brand and market leadership position, focusing on their value-added products, pursuing disciplined growth. And after thinking, I came up with the following goals that could help them with the following identity management goals that could help them with their broader goals. They could consolidate their Active Directory force. They could use GalSync to increase communication among their business units. They could use group management to focus on quickly creating teams that are needed to go tackle problems. They wanted to improve operating efficiency. Well, hey, let's automate provisioning and deprovisioning. They wanted to pursue disciplined growth. Well, let's again be prepared with automation and also of group management. They wanted to use federation, or they wanted to communicate with their partners, a nutrition institute they'd set up. I suggested, hey, let's use federation. Hey, let's use consumer B2C, so that they can integrate not just with the institute, but also with consumers that wanted to connect with them. These goals were well received and led to profitable discussions and profitable projects. Back in 2010, I visited a pharmaceutical company and I presented the following. I snagged this graphic from their annual report where they were laying out their 5-year vision. They wanted to be a global pharma innovator. They wanted to expand their reach, they wanted to fulfill unmet medical needs, and they wanted to innovate in science, business, and technology. So I said, hey, you guys have a lot of subsidiaries. Let's use GalSync to integrate that and provide communication so you can actually communicate with each other. They didn't have that to that point. Let's use federation and, where appropriate, Active Directory trust so that your subsidiaries can talk to each other. Let's implement secure collaboration through federation with your partners. Let's use group management so that you can quickly spin up your rapid application development teams. Let's streamline business support. Let's give your employees access to what they need on day one. And let's protect your intellectual property from the moment of an employee's departure. One, by disabling their access, but also with some information protection schemes. And finally, since you guys seem to be on an acquisition binge, let's create a playbook for mergers and acquisitions. Of course, with a focus on identity management, but covering all the aspects of IT so that they can estimate how much it costs in advance. Their jaws dropped, and they said, that's exactly what we need to tell HQ. The second step is that you need to illustrate the potential financial impact. A large retail client once told me, identity management is the only compliance effort that pays you back.
What do they mean by that?
I was just asked, what do they mean by that? Well, when you implement identity management, you're improving your compliance. You're going to make it easier to show your auditors, but because it's also automation, you're automating work that you're otherwise having to do by hand, you're able to divert those resources to other things that are more productive and hence save money. In order to understand the financial impact of your projects or potential financial impact, we need to do a brief primer on income statements. How many of you regularly read income statements from companies? Okay, just one or two. So, brief primer. As an example, we use Microsoft in the year 2014. They made $86.8 billion. Where did it go? Well, they spent $26.9 billion on the cost of goods sold, or as they call it, the cost of revenue, since they sell both services and products. $20.6 billion on SG&A, sales, general, and administration. $11.4 billion on research and development, $500 million on interest, $5.7 billion on taxes, and $22 billion was left for profit. I'm not going to go through everything in this chart, but this just gives an example where some different kinds of software projects can have an impact on the bottom line. For example, if you implement a CRM or you enhance your CRM, that can actually increase your revenue because you can sell more. If you implement an ERP or enhance it, or a supply chain management system, again, that can enhance your revenue because you have the capacity to deliver more. If you implement some kind of quality control, like statistical process control, that can lower the number of defects you have, hence lowering the cost of goods sold. Now, identity management would really be considered an IT automation project. So it typically falls here under the sales, general, and administrative expenses. But as we get into consumer identity management, it falls here, but it also has an impact similar to CRM. So as you'll see, typically we're reducing the SG&A. No, not usually by $10 billion. We wish. We wish identity management projects would reduce the cost by $10 billion, but they're not quite that big. But even if they don't, not all projects are going to reduce the SG&A. But even if they don't, they can give you leverage to grow revenue faster than that portion of SG&A is. And they can protect your revenue from threats such as hacking. They can also increase revenue, especially in the consumer space. So let's take a brief moment at several different kinds of enterprise identity management projects and how they impact the bottom line. Provisioning. Getting new employees access faster, improves security and compliance while saving you money. This gives you leverage to grow that revenue faster than the IT cost to provision and deprovision. You can increase revenue with self-service password reset by getting your employees back to work faster and reducing help desk costs. With RBAC and governance, you're protecting your revenue and potentially getting the auditors out of your hair, which even if that's not a cost savings, that's a psychological cost savings. Single sign-on, reduce help desk calls because there's fewer passwords for people to forget, especially after their long weekends. And of course, it also protects us against threats. Single sign-on, like the password reset, can help us increase revenue by getting people to work, back to work faster, or even saving them from forgetting their password and saving them from having to log on. Federating with partners is an interesting one because we're shifting the responsibility for deprovisioning. So we're simultaneously reducing our admin cost while increasing our security because we're putting the responsibility for deprovisioning the partner accounts where it belongs, on the partner. We don't know when the partner terminates personnel. They do. Applicant self-service and HR self-service. This is more of an HR project, but I put it here because HR is often an excellent entry point for enterprise identity management. And organizations that do this, they've got the applicants entering their data and it flowing all the way through. Then into provisioning and on into your directories and applications. This allows you to leverage existing HR costs. And it can reduce costs by automating some work. Multi-factor authentication. This one actually usually increases your SG&A a little bit, but it increases your security drastically. When I went to business school, they taught us that 4 out of every 5 mergers fail. Now, global address list synchronization is not a cure-all, but it can help remedy that a little bit by fostering secure communication across the newly acquired organization. This, in turn, can increase revenue. This, however, since it's not replacing anything, does increase your costs. The consumer side gets very exciting. Similar provisioning is very similar, lowering the SG&A. Giving your customers the ability to do business with you faster can raise revenue. The self-service password reset is very similar as well. The social login, lowering those barriers, getting able to acquire customers more, that can also increase revenue. And of course, when we're having an impact on revenue, not just costs, that can make us that much more strategic. Single sign-on, similarly, can increase the revenue by enabling your customers. They might be doing business with one part of your company, but if they can use single sign-on to access various applications and services you have, that's one less barrier they have to jump over to get to those and to start spending more money with you. Analytics. Now this one's nice. This can actually help you lower the cost of sales, not just the admin portion, but sales as a percentage of revenue by helping you do better targeted marketing. And of course, that can also lead to growth in revenue. Some case studies that are out there indicate that companies that have implemented this have been able to increase their transaction size by getting better response to the marketing. Customers that would have only spent $500 wound up spending $750 because of the better marketing to them. Similarly, the consumer self-service registration and portal can give you access as well can increase your revenue because customers can start doing business with you sooner. And of course, lower your costs. Multi-factor authentication, same story, it increases costs, but, and for some industries this is critical, it can increase consumer confidence. Calculating the impact, this can be a little harder because some CFOs don't like soft costs, so focus on the hard costs first, look at where you can get the leverage and calculate your hard costs, but don't forget to calculate as best you can some of the soft costs. The third step, or the third key, is to be concise and impactful. I highly recommend a book by Ron Hoff called Say It in 6. It teaches you how to present your burning question, how to cover background briefly, how to get to your idea in tangible form, how to cover the benefits, and then how to get to an interactive close. And so the first part of that 6 minutes, and then you enter into a discussion with people. As we follow these 3 keys, you will gain allies and steamroll the people who would block these programs. If you can explain the financial impact of these programs, it's harder for the CFO to turn you down. Being concise will make you stand out. It's always easier to get a short meeting with these busy executives than a long one. And as we've heard from some of the prior talks today in this room, getting executive support can be tricky. They definitely appreciate conciseness. So again, the 3 keys: align with the CEO's goals, illustrate the potential financial impact, be concise and impactful. I'm David Lundell of Identity Managed. Thank you for attending. Any questions?
I have one. Then I'll take this around to others. My apologies. What is GalSync?
GalSync is Global Address List Synchronization. It's those kinds of projects enable the people in one email organization to see the email addresses of people in another email organization. And shortly after a merger or acquisition, you usually have multiple email organizations. And they can't see each other's emails. They have to, hey, what's that guy's email? What's your email? Whereas with the global address list synchronization, they can just type in the name and then it converts it automatically to the email.
Perfect. Next question. I'll be glad to give up the mic or ask another question. So we all know that projects tend to fail at a pretty good rate in IT. Would you say that going through this has some way of helping to ensure you have a successful project? It gives you more attention or something?
Absolutely. One of the keys to successful identity management programs and projects is to have that executive support. Identity management is, I'm not going to say unique, but one of its aspects is that it requires conversations with several different departments.
Oh, yeah.
In enterprise identity management, we're at least talking to the people who run Active Directory and the people who run HR and usually security. And getting all 3 of those groups to agree on something can be challenging. Sometimes we have to ask HR to change their processes. Oh, well, we only enter people after they've been at the company for 2 weeks because that's when we need to pay them.
You always go through that when you're starting it. Yeah.
So helping the HR people see how they can be a strategic help to the rest of the organization is a key thing. And having a key executive who can back you up, who has the political capital to step in and negotiate some of those things for you is a must.
Right.
Whether you're an insider or an outsider, the executive leadership is a key there.
And just another comment. I've always found, like you said, that identity management projects are tougher because you have to get such diverse, approval, buy-in from that.
Yeah. On the consumer side, we're dealing with marketing, IT, and IT security. And because that gets involved with the actual revenue stream of the company, then they can get even more nervous. And so again, having that executive leadership. And so that's why this is one of the key focuses, is to get that and to take us from a bunch of geeks who don't know how to talk business and get us to be a little more business savvy and help us connect and go, this is how we can help the business.
Excellent, thank you. Other questions?
Got one there in the back.
Where? Oh, good.
So, well, so the problem we always have is being able to quantify something into dollars.
Mhm.
So, for example, if we have self-service password reset that would save the help desk, 1,500 calls. I mean, are you just to quantify that? Do you say, okay, 1,500 calls, 2 minutes a call? Let's take the salary of the command center person or help desk person to. And that's our metric, or I mean, do you factor in the actual caller's time as well? Is there good metrics? Is there good ways to estimate that stuff?
So various analyst organizations, who shall remain unnamed, have studied this out, and they have come up with numbers that range between $28 to $54 per help desk call, using various different methods, sometimes including the user cost, sometimes not. Obviously, it's going to vary, but you can use those as good, reliable ranges. Your costs are going to be somewhere in that neighborhood. The user cost is more of a soft cost, but the cost of the help desk technician and everything else that goes along with that are hard costs that if you're outsourcing your help desk, then you're going to get lower, you're going to be able to get lower rates. If you have an insourced help desk, then potentially you could promote one of those people out of the help desk to do something else, or alternatively in tough times, you know what they have to do.
Any other questions?
Is there similar metrics for other types of quantifying for, that we have the help desk one, but is there a good source to go to for that?
So
That's a good question.
sadly, some of these analyst firms have stopped providing some of this data in their reports. So for example, one of them used to provide a magic quadrant, which tells you who it is, about user provisioning software, and they've stopped doing that a couple years ago. They've been focusing on a lot of the other aspects of identity management. But if you want to look at, well, there's Gartner, there's Kuppner-Cole, there's Forrester. Those are the three who I've seen deal with identity management and have some good numbers usually. So if you buy their Magic Quadrant or equivalent report, sometimes they'll have data in there about how much a particular kind of thing costs. Are those numbers perfectly reliable? They're an industry. They're averaged across a lot of stuff. How applicable is that to you? You have to do some guesswork there, or you can do some calculations of your own. It's a lot easier just to take those numbers though from the analysts and say this is about what it is. Proving the hard costs at the end. There's some organizations that insist that people have to get laid off in order to prove hard costs at the end. I prefer that organizations find, because there's always more things to do, especially in a growing company, and that makes more sense to me, is that they would repurpose the individual for bigger and better things.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice? Thank you.
Sold to the man in the back.